If you walk into a crowded room, like anywhere in South Korea, and just pick someone completely at random, there's nearly a 1 in 2 chance their last name is Kim, Lee, or Park.
Yeah, it's wild. And I mean, we aren't talking about a quirky anomaly or some glitch in the census data.
Right, it's a statistical reality.
Yeah,
Just 3 surnames covering almost half of an entire modern nation.
exactly. Those three names are the visible fingerprints of 500 years of intense history. We're looking at strict class struggles, the legacies of ancient royalty, and a massive legal reform in 1894 that it completely rewired the social fabric of the country.
Welcome to the story Real Korea. In this exploration of our sources, we are getting straight to the core of why a country of over 50 million people operates on what feels like a tiny, exclusive handful of last names.
It really is a fascinating story. It's about how people seize their own dignity when given the chance.
Yeah, and how a choice made by someone's great-grandfather over a century ago is still dictating the reality of identity today for you and millions of others.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Because the sheer scale of the naming phenomenon is honestly hard to wrap your head around if you grew up in a place like the US or the UK.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, in the United States, you have something like 6.3 million different last names floating around. It's a massive, sprawling web. But in Korea, it's like drawing surnames from a hat that only has a few hundred slips of paper in it.
That analogy is spot on. A census in the year 2000 actually showed fewer than 300 total surnames in the entire country.
Wait, fewer than 300? That's it?
That's it. For a highly industrialized nation of over 50 million people, that is a remarkably small menu of options.
And the dominance of the top 3 is just staggering. Let's put some hard numbers on this so you can really picture the logistics. Kim is the undisputed heavyweight right now.
Oh, yeah. It's the single most common surname in the country, representing about 10.69 million people.
Which is roughly 21.5% of the population. That is more than 1 in 5 people you pass on the street.
And the concentration doesn't really drop off steeply after that either. Lee, which you'll sometimes see romanized as Yi or Ri, depending on the era, that makes up about 14.7%.
Right. And Park, or Buck, is another 8.4%.
Exactly. So you add just those three together and you're sitting at roughly 44.6% of the country.
That is just, it's mind-boggling. And if you keep pulling from that hat and look at the top 10 surnames, which includes, Choi, Young, Kang, Cho, Yoon, Jang, and Lim, you've suddenly covered 63.9% of everybody.
Almost 2/3 of the population.
I'm just imagining the sheer logistical chaos of trying to page someone over an intercom in a massive corporate office in Seoul. Like, can Mr. Kim come to the front desk? You'd get a stampede.
You really would. Well, the reality of that logistical bottleneck means Korean society has had to develop very clear workarounds.
Like what?
Well, in the military or in large companies, people rarely just use a last name. You use the full name or the last name tied strictly to a job title, like Manager Kim or Director Lee.
Oh, I see.
And even then, there might be 3 Manager Kims in the exact same department.
Which naturally leads to the absolute most common assumption anyone makes when they first hear this.
That they're all related.
Exactly. With millions of people sharing the exact same last name, the gut instinct is to think they must all be family. Like somewhere back in the mists of ancient history, there's one original guy named Kim, and these 10 million people are all just his distant cousins.
It's the most intuitive leap to make, but it's almost entirely incorrect.
Really?
Entirely incorrect.
Yeah, if you see 2 random Kims sitting next to each other on the subway, they're usually of no relation whatsoever. Their respective ancestors might have adopted the names centuries apart, completely independent of one another.
But if the name Kim doesn't actually mean you're in the same family, there has to be a mechanism to know who is actually family, right?
There is. And what's fascinating here is that the surname is really only half of the equation. In Korean culture, the surname acts merely as a broad, almost superficial category.
So what's the other half? The real secret decoder ring for identity is something called the bangwan.
Okay, the Bongwan. Let's break that down.
Sure. The bangwan is the clan's ancestral hometown. It's the geographic root of your specific family lineage.
So it's tied to a physical place.
Exactly. In the traditional system, your true identity isn't just your name. It equals your surname plus your bangwan.
So you aren't just a Kim. You're a Kim from a very specific place. It's like the surname is just the brand name on the front of the box, but the Bangwan is the actual ingredients list on the back that tells you what you're really dealing with.
That's a fantastic way to visualize it. But We should probably add that even the ingredients list covers a massive amount of people.
Oh, really? How big are these clans?
Well, take the Gimhae Kim clan, for example.
Wow.
Their Bangwon traces back to the city of Gimhae.
Yeah.
They're the largest single clan in the country.
Oh.
They trace their origins all the way back to the year 42 CE to a legendary founder of an ancient kingdom. Today, that single clan has about 4.46 million members.
Wait, one clan has 4.46 million members. That's bigger than the entire population of New Zealand, just for one specific subset of Kims.
I know, it's massive. And on the flip side, you have the Gyeongju Kim clan tracing back to the city of Gyeongju.
Totally different place.
Exactly. Even though both people go by the surname Kim in daily life, a Gimhae Kim and a Gyeongju Kim are completely unrelated, different founding ancestors, different histories, zero shared bloodline.
And I imagine you see this with the other major names, too.
Oh, absolutely. With the surname Lee, the most prestigious group, historically, is the Jeonju-yi clan. That's the royal house.
The royalty.
Yeah, they're the family that founded and ruled the Joseon dynasty for over 500 years. But there are dozens of other Lee clans from other towns who have absolutely no biological connection to the monarchy.
But this just deepens the mystery. I mean, if millions of Kims and Lees are totally unrelated to each other, and they belong to all these different ancestral hometowns, the obvious question is why they all ended up adopting the exact same broad brand name in the first place.
Right, why not pick something else?
Exactly. If you're an unrelated family from a different town, why not just pick a different name?
To understand the why, we have to rewind the clock to a time when most people in Korea didn't have a surname at all.
Okay, let's go back.
We have to go back into the heart of the Joseon dynasty, which lasted from 1392 all the way to 1910. For the vast majority of that 500-year stretch, having a surname wasn't a standard right.
It wasn't.
No, it was an exclusive privilege fiercely guarded by the elite.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Today, we take our last names for granted. It's just a basic identifier on your driver's license. But in the Joseon era, a surname was basically a highly exclusive VIP club membership.
A VIP badge that dictated almost every aspect of your life, yes. Surnames were strictly the domain of the Yangban, the aristocratic, scholar official class that ran the government and owned the land.
So what about everyone else?
If you were a commoner, a merchant, a farmer, or part of the enslaved class known as the nobi, you generally had no surname at all. You were just known by a given name.
That's such a heavy concept to internalize. You're walking around in a society where just hearing someone's full name instantly tells you they have rights, property, and power.
And the absence of a name tells you you're at the very bottom of the social pyramid.
Right. And the names at the absolute top of that elite list were Kim, Lee, and Park.
Those names practically glowed with prestige. As we mentioned, the Jeonju-yi clan were the literal kings. Kim and Park were deeply tied to the ancient, legendary founders of early Korean kingdoms.
So carrying one of those names meant your bloodline was undeniably noble.
Undeniably.
But I mean, human nature is human nature. If carrying a VIP badge like Kim or Lee instantly grants you social respect, gets you out of certain grueling labor, and elevates your family, I have to push back a bit. Didn't commoners just start counterfeiting these VIP passes?
Counterfeiting them?
Yeah. If I'm a wealthy merchant who made a fortune trading but I don't have a surname, what's stopping me from just paying someone to write my name into a noble genealogy?
You're hitting on a very real historical phenomenon, actually. As the Joseon dynasty wore on, especially in the 18th and 19th centuries, the economy grew, and the rigid walls between the classes did start to crack.
So people did buy their way in.
Some commoners accumulated serious wealth and absolutely bought their way into elite lineages.
So there was a booming black market for fake aristocratic identities. How did that actually work?
They used family registry books called jokbo. These were meticulously kept, multi-volume records of a clan's entire bloodline, often housed in ancestral shrines.
Okay.
If a Yangban aristocratic family fell on hard times and went broke, which happened quite a bit, they still had their precious jokbo. A rich, nameless merchant would approach them and essentially buy a slot in their book.
Wow.
They'd pay the ruined noble to write their name in as a long-lost uncle or a distant second cousin. Suddenly, the merchant is a noble.
That's brilliant, honestly. It's identity theft, but negotiated face-to-face.
It was, but we have to be careful not to overstate it. There are a lot of lurid folk tales out there suggesting everyone in Korea just forged their way into nobility overnight through fraud and bribery.
Wasn't everyone.
No, while this genealogy padding definitely happened, it was a trickle. It doesn't explain how half the country ended up with three names.
Right, the math doesn't add up for a black market.
Exactly. A black market can only process so many forged books. To get numbers that massive, you'd need the government to practically hand these names out.
Which brings us to the tipping point. The floodgates opening.
Yes. The real shift was a sweeping, systemic legal reset known as the Gabo Reform.
Let's set the stage for this, because 1894 is a wild time. The Joseon dynasty is under immense geopolitical pressure. You've got Japan, China, and Western powers all encroaching, and the Korean government realizes they have to modernize rapidly or get swallowed whole.
In a desperate bid to survive, they pushed through radical changes. And one of the most profound things they did was completely abolish the traditional hereditary class system.
Just like that.
In a single stroke of the pen, they formally dismantled the hierarchy that had governed life for 5 centuries. The legal walls between the aristocratic Yangban and the commoners were erased, and crucially, the enslaved Nobi class was emancipated.
So overnight, you have millions of people who have been legally defined as property or second-class citizens their entire lives, who are now legally free.
Millions of people.
And as part of this modernization, the government rolls out a new household registration system. For a modern bureaucracy to collect taxes and build an army, everyone needs to be counted. And to be counted on these new forms, everyone needs a surname.
The old rule that only the elite could hold a family name just vanished. The state essentially told the entire population you need a last name now.
Put yourself in that exact historical moment. Imagine you're a newly emancipated person. For generations, your family has been subjugated, you've had no social standing, no recognized lineage, and suddenly, a government clerk hands you a blank line on a registration form and says, write down your family name. You know exactly which names in your society carry the ultimate status, the ultimate prestige, the scent of ancient royalty. What are you going to write?
You're going to write Kim. You're going to write Lee. You're going to write Park.
You aren't going to invent a brand new obscure name like Smith or Miller that signals to everyone in town that you just got your surname yesterday. You're going to reach for the very top shelf.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this wasn't just an act of administrative copying. It was a profound psychological reclamation of dignity.
A reclamation of dignity. I like that.
For millions of people who had been looked down upon, adopting these elite names was a way of erasing the stigma of their past. By choosing the grandest names available, and, crucially, claiming the grandest Bangwan, the ancestral hometowns of those royal clans, they were asserting their equality in this new, modern era.
It was a monumental collective choice made by millions of individuals simultaneously.
It really was.
It's incredibly moving when you view it through that lens. It wasn't mass fraud. It was a society grabbing onto a new equal identity with both hands. But because they all grabbed the exact same handful of identities, they essentially manufactured a massive, intertwined web of new family lines.
Yeah, they did.
And the fascinating and honestly somewhat tragic part is how seriously society took these newly adopted clan identities.
Almost too seriously. And this is where the story takes a sharp turn into modern legal battles. Because the state and society embraced these constructed clan lineages so deeply that it eventually created a massive collision with modern civil rights.
Right, because once you write down on that 1894 census that you are a Gimhae Kim, the government treats your family exactly like historical Gimhae Kims forever, with all the ancient rules that apply to that clan.
And the strictest rule of all had to do with marriage.
For decades, under modern South Korean civil law, there was a strict prohibition against marrying someone from your own clan. It was called Dongseon Dongbon.
Which literally translates to same surname, same ancestral origin. The law absolutely forbade marriage between a man and a woman who shared both the same surname and the same Bangwan.
Think about the real-world terror of this. Imagine you meet someone in college. You fall deeply in love, you date for years, and you decide to get married.
Right.
And then you look at their official family registry, and you realize they have the exact same ancestral home count listed as you do. In an instant, your relationship is legally void. The government will not issue you a marriage license.
And remember the scale we discussed earlier. If you're a Gimhae Kim, you are legally blocked from marrying any of the other 4.4 million Gimhae Kims in the country.
That is wild.
It didn't matter if you lived at opposite ends of the peninsula and couldn't find a common ancestor going back 30 generations.
Even though, historically speaking, there's a massive probability that your great-grandparents just picked the same name during the Gabo reform and you share absolutely zero meaningful blood ties.
This raises an important question about identity, right? The law treated a manufactured adopted lineage with the exact same rigidity as a direct biological bloodline. And the human cost of this was staggering.
It must have been devastating.
Couples who shared a bangwan but were complete strangers by blood were essentially forced into the shadows.
How do they even cope with that? If the state won't recognize your marriage, you can't just ignore it.
It was incredibly difficult. Some couples moved abroad to countries where the law didn't apply. Many others simply lived together as common-law spouses for decades.
Without any legal protection.
Right. But living as an illegitimate family in 20th century Korea meant severe social stigma. You had to lie to landlords, you faced discrimination from employers, and most heartbreakingly, children born to these couples often couldn't be properly registered under their father's family line.
Wow. Which stripped them of essential legal protections and healthcare access. The state effectively took a pool of millions of biological strangers and said, "We consider you immediate family, so you cannot marry." It's mind-boggling.
So how did this finally break? Because obviously this isn't the law today.
No, it's not. But it took a remarkably long time and a lot of fighting. As South Korea democratized in the late 1980s and civil society grew stronger, activist groups and these shadow couples started pushing back hard.
They must have been exhausted.
They were. They argued the ban was archaic, cruel, and completely out of step with modern science and human rights. But they faced fierce resistance from conservative Confucian scholars who argued that dropping the ban would destroy Korean morality.
They actually said that.
Yeah, they claimed it would turn them into a society of beasts marrying their own siblings.
The tension there is wild. You have modern human rights clashing directly with an identity system built on a 19th century reform of a 15th century hierarchy.
The breaking point finally arrived in the late 1990s. On July 16, 1997, the Constitutional Court of South Korea struck down the marriage ban, ruling it unconstitutional. 1997, that's incredibly recent. I mean, we had the internet in 1997.
It is recent. The court ruled that the ban directly clashed with a citizen's constitutional right to pursue happiness.
Makes sense.
Furthermore, they pointed out a glaring flaw in the traditional system clan lineage was traced exclusively through the father's bloodline. It ignored the mother's side entirely, which blatantly violated modern constitutional principles of gender equality.
So overnight, families that had been living in the shadows for decades could finally walk into a government office and get legally married. The relief must have been unimaginable.
Following the ruling, the law was revised. Today, only genuinely close, direct biological relatives are restricted from marrying, which aligns with standard practices around the world.
The legal system finally caught up to the sociological reality that had been set in motion 100 years earlier during the Gabo reform.
It took a century, but yes.
So what does this all mean for you as you digest this history? Well, the next time you meet someone named Kim or Lee or Park, you'll know the secret beneath the surface. The reason 45% of the country shares those names isn't a lack of imagination, and it isn't a glitch in the matrix.
It's the living, breathing residue of 1894.
Exactly. It's a monument to a moment when millions of people reached for the grandest, most prestigious names available after the fall of a rigid class system.
It means you now understand that hidden layer of the Bangwan, the ancestral hometown, that most outsiders never even see. You know that two Kims on the street are almost certainly complete strangers, carrying a massive piece of human history right there in their passports.
It completely changes how you see the country, and it leaves us with something quite profound to ponder, especially today.
It does. Think about the rise of modern DNA testing services like 23andMe or Ancestry. We now have the technology to map our exact biological origins. But what happens in a society like Korea when a simple cheek swab reveals that your biological DNA has absolutely zero connection to the grand, royal Bangwan your family has proudly claimed for a century?
That's a fascinating clash, when the cold, hard biological truth contradicts the paper genealogy.
It forces us to ask a really deep question about what heritage actually is. Does biological truth matter more? Or is your true heritage the courageous, pragmatic choice your great-grandfather made in 1894 to claim a noble name, survive, and elevate his family's dignity in a changing world?
Sometimes the story we choose to tell about ourselves becomes far more real than our DNA.
Exactly.
That's a thought that will stick with you the next time you look at your own family tree. Because what's written in ink might just be the stories someone decided to tell to survive. Thanks for listening to The Story Real Korea.